In my memories, I can see visions of a brighter future, a dream that I wanted to live in. I think of those hazy, halcyon days sitting in front of the TV. How could I explain to my parents that I wasn't actually rotting my brains out staring at screens? The television was a portal, and some of these music videos transported us to other worlds. There's a popular criticism that a lot of fantasy and sci-fi of the past ended up crafting new worlds that rarely included Black people. We existed in the margins of dystopia, the underground of the underground, or even just didn't exist at all, erased, or certainly never centered in these narratives. But around the dawn of the new millennium, there seemed to be this blip in the timeline where Black people weren't just envisioning the future themselves. We were really serving the future. Anyway, I have some thoughts. Let's talk about it. So in my head, I'm recreating this period that uniquely blended Y2K aesthetic and Afrofuturism in a way that goes really underappreciated. It felt crazy, it felt sexy, it felt cool, it felt distinctly Black, and it was shiny, like really, really shiny. But was it real? Or does this vision of a Black future only live in my memories, warped by time and a growing distaste for the present? Dreams of an inner child yearning for the unrealized promise of some brighter tomorrow. So I'm making this video to study this trend, whether it even was one, or if I'm just like Mandela affecting myself. Look at its origins, its implications, what it all meant, and why it went away. Because being a hashtag 90s kid, what could be more millennial of me than inflating the importance of my own consumerist nostalgia? Okay, I'm gonna keep it real with y'all. I ain't gonna hold you. I want to do something different with this video. Spending several videos doing deep dives on like climate catastrophe and depression and my own depression and white supremacy in its various forms and the incarceral system in a video that I haven't even put out yet. I kind of want to switch it up. Can we just like have fun indulging in nostalgia and reminiscing about music videos? Is that cool with y'all? You know what? That's where we're going to do that. We're going to have fun. That's what we're doing. It's GoldFro. It's my channel. I can do what I want. Y2K aesthetic came around the year 2000 AD, where artists and companies felt inspired to craft fashion, music, products, graphic design, and architecture that reflected the move into a new millennium. People wanted to be the craftsmen building the worlds of the future before, some nerds from Harvard took a crack at it and ruined everything. Fun. We're having fun. A Tumblr blog that documents this trend called the Y2K Aesthetic Institute describes its curations as coming from a time when the future was tight leather pants, silver eyeshadow, shiny clothing, Oakley's gradients, and blobby electronics. We also commonly saw the prevalence of chrome, icy hues, metallic-looking materials, jewel tones, translucent plastics, rounded irregular objects or blobjects, a general focus on late 90s tech, and very unique hairstyles. Just so many sections. On the other hand, we have Afrofuturism. Afrofuturism is a more complex, wide-ranging social and arts movement that at its core centers African-descended peoples and their cultures embodied in imagined future worlds. As a social movement, there are recurring optimistic themes of liberation, empowerment, survival, and community with commentary on oppressive histories and issues here in the present. As an aesthetic, it's less clear. Like, looking at all the things considered Afrofuturism, there are shared qualities, but not really concrete conditions that definitively make something Afrofuturism or not. Afrofuturism aesthetic is probably most obviously employed by combining imagined technology like flying cars, lasers, robots, etc. with African designs and imagery. Visually, this is most potently depicted in the 2018 film Black Panther, but many key works of Afrofuturism are not set in Africa at all. So, is the shared aesthetic of Afrofuturism simply imagining Black people existing in the future? Like I made this based window meme. Is this Afrofuturism? Something tells me no. Basically, I think without the social context, Afrofuturism aesthetic is more of a vibe. You know it when you see it. My brain wants to remember this period of the early aughts as this whole sci-fi black arts movement. I think in truth, there's only like a handful of videos that really fit into the Venn diagram of Y2K aesthetic and potentially Afrofuturistic vibes. The ones I specifically remembered though are very much quintessential examples of Y2K, incorporating the common motifs. We have the techno LED lights, screens, icy blue colors, leather, avant-garde fashions, hair, sections, the digital imagery, space, playing with gravity and weightlessness, the shininess, the blobbiness. Busta Rhymes literally transforms into a blob, and every time I see it, I really want a Capri Sun. Is this my Winter Soldier programming? What did these commercials do to me? Now, I'm not an expert in vibology, but something in my recollections of these videos does strike me as Afrofuturistic. It is certainly Black people in some kind of imagined future setting. These worlds never existed in our timeline, but not much of the imagery strikes me as particularly African. So what about the deeper meaning? At first glance, the videos I'm remembering are mostly style over substance. Futures portrayed in these videos don't really have narratives to dissect. Like many videos of the Y2K era, these are honestly meant to be very abstract, just geometric shapes and moving furniture that's supposed to leave an impression of some otherworldly music realm for artists to perform in. It's pure entertainment for its own sake. Trying to mine some deeper meaning out of it all feels a little bit foolish. However, I basically graduated Fulu Cum Laude from Boo University. Foolish is what I do. So I'm sorry, I know I said we're just having fun, but we gonna do some overthinking today. It'll be fine and we'll still have some fun, okay? Stay with me. Before y'all ask, no, even as a graduate, I do not know who Boo Boo the Fool is. All I know is that they are not my mom, okay? Anyway, what if I told you these music videos actually betray the social movement aspect? What if they aren't really Afrofuturism? Whereas Afrofutures optimistically imagine spaces beyond current hegemony, these videos might more accurately depict a very neoliberal utopia, a quote-unquote progressive world where we are really just more holistic consumers. In these corporate visions, we become isolated market segments dressed in slick metallic colors, less focused on the beauty of material relationships and more invested in the surreal dreams constructed for us by capitalists trying to sell us things.
Oh baby, it makes me wanna sing.
These futures are still largely driven by capitalist impulse. TLC's Space Station Adventures in Misandry admittedly seem very fun, but in the context of a song that is about a desire to distance themselves from broke boys, they literally flee to a 6-starship playhouse to get away from men who don't have money.
Wanna get with me with no money? Oh no, I don't want no.
Those icy blue hues that wash over so many scenes represent the blue light of computer screens, the computer being the tool that would connect people of the world to each other, and the main vehicle connecting the present to these imagined futures. In Black's Bring It All To Me video, the girl group emerges from a future cube as mere holograms, artificial projections of femininity and cool confidence. We also see these men being sucked into the digital world of Black, being enraptured by 3 beautiful holographic sirens cooing in digital code. By the end of the video, the guys are left inside, and who knows how long they've been trapped in the metaverse. They might still be there. We also have the teal anti-gravity chamber where Aaliyah finds refuge in We Need a Resolution. And while she sings about the need to resolve issues in a relationship, she's alone and isolated. That push and pull of pleasurable solitude and desire for connection describes so much of our current digital relationships. Back to No Scrubs, Dawn in shiny blue and chrome, Left Eye speaks from a claustrophobic, glittery prison. She flails wildly, shadowboxing for a shiny camera, tracking her every movement, recording her stream of consciousness speech. It's presumably broadcast for the world to see. Basically, she invents Twitch streaming. Perhaps in the same solar system, Michael and Janet Jackson roam around their admittedly awesome space mansion full of consumer products where they can put distance between themselves and the rest of the world. We have more screens, video games, anti-gravity play. Instead of TV, we have transmutable art where we are entertained in our own worlds, constantly entertained in our own worlds. Similar to the icy blue cyberspace, the cold reaches of black outer space may be a representation of our isolation that is largely self-induced despite a longing for connectivity, to touch another person. A metaphor that foreshadows the hours of dazed scrolling through the pixelated desert of Facebook for a hint of human connection. The Jackson song and video were called Scream, and as the 1979 film Alien taught us, in space, no one can hear you scream. Seeking connection, shouting into the void. Sound familiar? The quote-unquote utopia presented in these worlds is a label perhaps not truly reflective of the product being sold. And if we're being honest, they don't feel like alternate timelines at all. They feel like the sad one we inhabit now, just a whole lot shinier. So that interpretation is bleak. It does not pass the vibe check. I can see the tomatoes in your hands, so let's switch it up. Is there truly an Afrofuturistic lens to view these music videos? Short answer, yes. Long answer, to find Afrofuturism here, let's actually look more into Y2K. The name Y2K refers to the famed computer bug surrounding the year 2000 that basically amounted to a calendar error. The term Y2K as a concept also encapsulates the resulting hysteria over a poorly understood computer quirk that supposedly threatened anything from acute technology failures in everyday life to potentially the complete collapse of our banking institutions. Lots of money was sunk into Y2K preparedness, and by the time the year 2000 hit, nothing happened. Whether the threat was merely overhyped to begin with, or whether mitigation efforts were actually effective in avoiding a crisis is debatable. In the mythology, what we know as the Y2K aesthetic describes the culture birthed in turn-of-the-century idealism that reached its peak in the wake of a kind of averted apocalypse. A culture that reflects a sense of an exciting unknown, the possibility of an optimistic future that is often described as techno-utopianism. So right here is where the framework of Y2K reflexively gives us the Afrofuturistic context, that sincere optimism for a future for Black people without struggle. We can see the ethos of that techno-optimism in the lyrics of the R&B group Guy off their album released in 2000. In the year 2004, life will be like one big party, the sensation of cultural unity. Hating is over and there's positivity. This is a new world, some things haven't changed. Yo, a party is a party no matter what day. So just like before, in the past, the future is what we make it, so let's make it last. Now, admittedly, the song still includes some of the more consumerist product things of Y2K. They mention angels laced in platinum robes, fancy cars with wheels dipped in chrome, computerized flossing, and fly ladies with futuristic styles. That imagery and the video for their song Dancin' off the same album lean a bit into the hedonistic, but the joyousness is an optimistic sentiment. That infectious focus on pleasure and having fun coming together is reflected in most of these examples. The Y2K Afrofuture was built around unity and Black joy. The motifs of playing with gravity and floating in some of the videos represent the freeing possibilities of technology. In these visions, Black culture reaches the heights of outer space, boundless and exploratory and exciting. Flight and floating are also common motifs of the Black American spiritual tradition, so they find a very logical and fitting space in Black imaginations of future societies. the Y2K Afrofuture was free from the constraints of the present world. I know I came off criticizing No Scrubs as belittling men for failing to participate in capitalism. In context, you have to understand this comes after years of hip-hop misogyny. It's mostly just women vocalizing their absolute right to say no to any man trying to holler, and just having standards for the men they engage with. Is it also a little bit cruel and a teensy bit classist? Maybe, but it's really hard for me to begrudge a woman for wanting a guy with just a little ambition. They are free women with the power to set the terms of their ideal relationships. In another vision, Aaliyah navigates power dynamics in her relationship in We Need a Resolution. She exudes coolness sliding through a chrome corridor in her blobby vehicle resembling a futuristic throne. Solitude and working on yourself aren't inherently bad. Like TLC, she's similarly empowered in the presentation. The girls of Blaque even embodied galaxy-trotting superheroes in their video for I Do, putting to the visual medium of the music video the idea that Black women can be and do anything. The Y2K Afrofuture was the domain of empowered Black women. Also following up with Blaque in their video 808, while embracing the sterile aesthetic of a cave and futuristic business room, it also imagines a space where Black women are prominent, in control, and empowered through their voice. Similarly, Janet recites her litany of issues as an address at a podium. And again, Left Eye performs for an attentive camera during her rap, focused on her voice, her words. This is in contrast to times in the present when Black femmes are so often silenced, talked over, or incentivized to hush or diminish their voice. In these videos, the women are largely in control. They are not simply sex objects for a man to slide a credit card down their culo. They are leaders, they are vanguards, they are respected and listened to. In the Y2K Afrofuture, Black women had strong voices that drove the conversation. The girl group Blaque may be the best example of this confluence of Y2K aesthetic and Afrofuturism. They're probably the conduit for the alternate timeline visions in my nostalgia-saturated dreams. Their Afrofuturist vibe is acknowledged in almost every article write-up about the group. As Owen Myers of The Guardian succinctly put it, the teen three-piece perfected the slinky stutters of that era's R&B pop with imagery that repacked Missy Elliott's Third Eye Afrofuturism for a gel pen-loving generation. And speaking of Missy, some videos diverge from the typical Y2K aesthetic or combine with Afrofuturism in a way that explores more alternative futures. Some cases, like Missy Elliott's She's a Bitch, ditch a utopian approach altogether to just revel in techno-nihilism. Missy Elliott portrays a comic book supervillain, the titular bitch of the song. At one point, she and her underlings rise out of the water, standing on a giant M for Missy. The whole video is an expensive spectacle displaying the glitzy joy of ego-driven apocalypse, fast cars, shiny rooms, just the mad power of it all, and Missy unapologetically using her femininity, her blackness to hold space, becoming the bitch, but embracing being that bitch. Again, these are examples of not only Black futures, but Black joy in the future may be revelatory in itself. She may be evil in the video, but they seem like they're having a great time. Honestly, being a Missy henchman seems like a lot of fun. Sign me up. We get a Black interpretation of a more cyberpunk aesthetic from Drew Hill's music video, You Are Everything. The Matrix came out a few months before this video premiered in 1999, and the influence is clear as day. Lots of simulated bullet time, all of the bullet time. The narrative of The Matrix is all about liberation from oppressive systems, freeing your mind. And this invokes those themes by aping the style, all while centering Black people, which that is Afrofuturism. TLC's Unpretty video leans more into the Afrofuturism than Y2K, but it results in a kind of beautiful combination of the two. Unlike pretty much all of the other videos, this one has a clear narrative. Here, T-Boz, Left Eye, and Chili are cast as angels or agents of some advanced source of benign power. They use their technology to keep watch on several young women in moments of crisis in the present, sending them messages of self-love, encouragement, and discernment to leave harmful situations. We still have the focus on technology, screens, and anti-gravity. They trade the icy blues, glossy blacks, and shiny silver and chrome for rich golds, warm reds, floral purples, and earth tones. The imagery and production design inside the main room is much more Eastern Asian and African inspired, featuring statues of Buddha, bronze vases, and tapestries. The ladies ditch the tight leather and metallic armor in favor of these loose-fitting harem pants as they strike yoga poses on floating golden platforms. It could slide a little bit into Orientalism, but that might be a discussion for another day. It's one of the coolest visuals for a video I remember seeing, and it stuck with me. This is Afrofuturism, coming right out of 1999. Combined with the themes of the song, the jangly guitars, the aesthetic realizes an optimistic vision of the future. The Y2K Afrofuture was rebellious, joyous, unifying, and uplifting. It was empowering and imaginative. It was a blackety black future, maybe even the blackest timeline. And all these years later, I'd still love to live there. I go searching my mind in the dark without a flashlight and trip on a memory. I fall in a portal and travel back to the year 2000. Despite the challenges of the 20th century, the 21st could be anything we imagine it to be. Adults pensively reminisced on past visions of the future. Questions like, where are the flying cars and moving sidewalks like the Jetsons? The future was knocking at the door. The dream of what could be kept us floating. And those pure memories are frozen in bright amber, keeping the sweet allure of nostalgia intact. Does it ever end? Of course it does. It did. It's almost cute where we thought we'd be. Even that one dour interpretation I came to. American capitalist culture somehow didn't foresee our bleak cyberpunk reality of the 2020s. Or maybe it did, and we were all too hopped up on Pepsi to notice.
Oh, baby, it makes
The Y2K Afrofuture was hopeful, most of all. In a present that feels like hope is hard to come by, it's nice to look back at a kind of mythical lost time, just without getting too bogged down by nostalgia. Nostalgia has a way of rose tinting our memories, even the ones drenched in computer blue. Like all media, it's important to be able to view it with clear eyes and a critical mind. Like, I really did just want to have fun reminiscing on old music videos, but in trying to define a Y2K Afrofuturism, I really had to confront the almost inherent conflict of ideology. On one hand, a style that comes with history, meaning, and some kind of social consciousness, and on the other, a style that celebrates consumption, frivolity, and excess. Oh me, oh my. At the same time, I think it can be valuable to draw on some of the optimism of this unique moment in visual culture. Inspiring people's imagination can be powerful, and I think the artists behind these visions understood that. It is just enjoyable to see. Visions of alternate futures centered on joy can be motivating in a way, even if the futures we want for ourselves now don't look much like these visions. Was it this expansive movement with a ton of example works? Not really, not cohesively, but there were hints of it all over. Enough to form a bond in my inner child. Its fleeting nature makes me want to document and contextualize it all the more. TLC, Black, Missy, Busta, Aaliyah, Michael and Janet, Guy, Drew Hill, Cisco. Thank you for letting us peep the vision. It was nice while it lasted. And now it feels like my next impulse is pulling me to investigate who else was responsible. Who were some of these architects of Black futures? The music artists themselves were the conduits, but who else contributed to these dreams? And where did it go when we woke up? Next time. As always, thank you so much for watching the video, and please go ahead and do all the things like comment, subscribe, ring that bell for the notification, and share it with somebody you think would appreciate it. Thank you for sticking with me and all the changes through this video. I'm glad we could have a little fun and not just focus on the heavy stuff. Let's keep trying to dream up a future we can all live in. All right? Peace.